actually pretty good. At least
I
the
like
second
it.
half is.
I thought it was, yeah.
I don't say if
Yeah.
you go in with the mindset that this is terrible, it's actually not bad.
Yeah,
I
have a problem with it.
But
Are
look,
we
I've
talking
heard
about
people
so
say
good
that
it's
they
bad or what?
like. I've heard
No,
just
not
as many
really.
people say they hate it for deviating from the original mythos as
Well,
I've
there's
heard
always
people
that.
say they
Yeah.
hate the original mythos and enjoy this for incorporating Grendel's story into it.
So, by the way, to everybody watching, we're live, everybody. We're talking about the
Hello.
Beowulf movie from
Yay.
like 10 years ago with the CGI Robert Zemeckis Beowulf
I
movie.
think it was like
Yeah,
20
just
years
for like a
ago.
moment.
20 years ago. It's been a while, yeah.
It's funny though to me how abruptly the tone of the movie changes, because the first half is so crude and corny and perverted, and then the second half it feels like a completely different movie. But I realize that's part of the theme, is that like the first half is still a fantasy story with monsters, and then you get to the second half where Protestant Christianity has taken over, and it's like all the myths, all the legends are dying, and it's just the dreary real world that we have now. It's like the last of the dragons dies, and Beowulf, like himself being one of these fantasy figures, fades away. And I like that. There's something really somber about fantasy stories where the fantasy goes away.
I remember watching it. I remember watching it, and because I didn't see it in theaters, I didn't see it until it was out on video, I think. And I was watching it, and it was going along a little bit, and I was like, this is okay. I'm not really super into it. And then Beowulf kills the monster and like pops out of its eyeball and screams his own name. And I'm like, okay, I like this. This is my thing now. That's what, because it's so over the top. It's like, okay, you know what I mean? Like now I get where they're going.
And being over the top is on brand for like the original lore too.
Yeah.
Those original stories.
And what's really funny,
like, drunk guys in a drinking hall just one-upping each other with their absurd stories, and then when one of them called, the part where you swam across the ocean and beat up a monster, I believe that, but then the part where you did some other thing, you're a liar about that. And you go, oh yeah, and then they get into like a fist fight with each other, and it's just like.
What's funny about that scene though is it shows that Beowulf not only has a weakness for ladies, but it's like anytime he opens his mouth, he's lying at least a little bit. But what's he lying about? The whole sequence, it feels like it could just be his imagination. But then there's the part with the mermaid where he's lying about that. So it's like, wait, so all that stuff with the sea monsters and the swimming, that was real? And this is the one part that he's lying about? I find that kind of thing interesting.
Okay, so IMDb 2007, so not 10 years, not 20 years, 15 years.
15
difference.
years. There you go. We were all equally wrong.
Yeah.
But one of the most touching elements of it to me is that even the monsters aren't that evil, because when you see Grendel and then you see his mom, who's like a proper dragon, you think, oh, she's probably happy he's dead because he was so misshapen or whatever. But no, then you see her carrying his corpse and she's crying and screaming. It's like, oh my God, she actually did love him, even though this is really nice.
It's probably the best of those Zemeckis CGI animated movies, I would think. I mean, because he got into that. I think he's still doing them every few years, or the motion capture, CGI movies. And he did the Polar Express, which which I mean, I didn't dislike as much as some people did, but I did. I mean, I do get the criticism
Valley,
that
the
it's
train ride.
Yeah, I do get the criticism that the computer, like the figures, the characters are a little creepy because the animation isn't quite where it needs to be,
Yeah,
the uncanny valley.
Yeah. So I get that, and also it totally makes the North Pole look like a cult ruled by Santa Claus. I mean, I know that it's supposed to be like when they do that, when the elves all start. They all start simultaneously singing "Santa Claus is coming to town," and I get that. I guess that's supposed to be cool or sort of wondrous, but it's really creepy. It's like, oh my God, they're all. It's like, it's like all.
I mean, being a cult is, if you think about it, is the only thing that would really make sense if you take the lore of the North Pole seriously. They're all just up there in his sweatshop working for him.
The scene
no
just
pay.
has that.
It's like
The scene just has that Wicker Man energy.
Yeah, it totally does. Absolutely. It's like they're all singing the song in this minor key. And it's like, whoa, I don't know if I like this.
Santa Claus is coming to town in minor?
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's and then Santa just like walks out on his balcony like the Pope. It's like, wait a minute, what is this? Like,
You know,
also,
actually,
of course,
Santa
Santa Claus isn't coming to town. This is his house. Why is he's not coming to town? He's
you
here.
know, I wouldn't mind a Santa that wears like a Pope hat or some crazy like that, because the kind that the Santa that we know with the red coat and the white trim and that was made up by Coca-Cola. That is a soda mascot.
Father Christmas does have like a Pope hat, doesn't he?
In some versions, yeah.
Yeah,
the modern
Saint Nicholas does in some renderings.
There's also like the pagan. Oh shit, I'm forgetting the name of the pagan guy that's basically Santa. A lot of Christian traditions are just pagan traditions with a new coat of paint.
For sure.
Well, like Krampus.
Yeah,
that's not Krampus. Krampus is like evil one, but there's it's like.
What about the story about the guy who built toys for the kids of the village he lived in? Is that what it's based off of?
Yeah, there was a man who rescued some girls whose family was so poor that they were essentially going to sell the girls. And and I guess he snuck some valuables down their chimney, which they were able to make money off of, and he saved the kids.
Mm-hmm. So interesting thing that like I was like, what other films that Robert Zemeckis directed? And I was like, oh wait, no, he directed like Back to the Future Part 2 and Part 3, but Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Contact. So it's like okay, no, I've seen some films.
He's actually, I mean, he's hit and miss, but his hits are usually really good. I mean, Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Contact, like when his hits are
Contact.
Yeah, Contact was great.
Yeah.
In Back to the Future Part 3, it's like, wait a second, did they actually destroy a steam engine? Did they make this thing work?
Somehow, I don't think that was CGI.
Mm-hmm. No, not in 1989. I don't think it was.
No, absolutely not.
No, that was 1990, 91. I think.
Usually, you would expect them to do that with a model locomotive.
No, 90.
Yeah,
but
Part 3. Yeah.
You would expect them to do that with a model locomotive, but here it's like, no, they ran an actual steam engine up. Oh man,
we got one take, so let's do this right.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that was filmed in like the 2 and 3 were filmed essentially in tandem, so it's possible that was even sooner, because they did have to do some After Effects for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing to me. Like the Back to the Future movies are an example of almost perfect pacing. Because the characters, they don't, I mean, even though they talk a little bit about time travel and stuff, throughout those movies, you are constantly being delivered information that may not seem that important at the time, but they find some way to make a joke out of it or just like, give you an impression of it. And then it comes up later. And it's just drip feeding this stuff to you so naturally that it rarely has to hit the brakes for anything.
I agree. All three of them, especially 1 and 3, I think, should be taught in screenwriting classes, because you're right, like they're so good at dropping in exposition without doing like Indiana Jones chalkboard scene to explain everything.
Even though there is actually
a chalkboard scene in Back to the Future Part 1, but
but it's very simple.
And there was 1 and 3 as well. We think about it.
I think there was.
The chalkboard was a layout of the railroad track.
Yeah, but that's the other thing too. Like when and they do that in Part 1 too with the model, where when Doc is like explaining, okay, here's how we're going to get you back to the future, and here's how we're going to time the lightning strike. Like they do it in a way that's kind of whimsical, with the model and the little wind up car. Like so, you're watching it and you're watching it and you're getting information that you need so that what happens next means something, but it's done in a way that's kind of funny and ends on a joke with the car catching fire.
What I really appreciate about Back to the Future, as far as like time travel movies or other media goes, is that so many time travel stories feel the need to try to explain and semi like, oh yeah, this is how time travel would really work, and it goes, spends like a huge chunk of time trying to rationalize it. And Back to the Future is like, oh yeah, we got a flux capacitor. It's nuclear powered.
Yeah.
What the hell's a gigawatt?
That's it. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
We don't need.
It's not really about the technical details here, folks.
Yeah, and all of them got debunked in Avengers Endgame, if you remember that scene, which I thought was hilarious.
This isn't Back to the Future rules. This is a different thing. Okay,
they came up with their own explanation for that too, as well.
Yeah, which I thought was great. That was I thought oh, they're doing a time travel story, but they're doing it under completely different premises, and they're doing it like a heist instead of having to go back and change things. And I thought that was fantastic.
Something that I've never seen. Something that I've never seen tackled in a time travel movie, though, is the concept of, I guess you could call it time travel addiction. Like, let's say there's somebody who spends several hours a day of their own life time traveling to who knows where, and so if they do that consistently, then from the perspective of their loved ones in the present, they would be aging really quickly, you know, because they're spending half of their time somewhere else.
Yeah,
that's something
Julie,
I've never seen done.
Has anyone ever read?
Julie, do you want to try to say something? See if we can hear you.
Nope, we can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry.
Maybe Steve, there's an option to like turn on microphone or turn up microphone, as it were.
Yeah, but, you've got the microphone icon in the lower left. You take a look at that and see if it's responding. Also check to see if when you originally entered, you were asked if you wanted to use computer audio. You know, you could redo that and check that.
Hey, believe it or not, I
was the resident troubleshooter.
Mute, it would show us the mute symbol on his thing. So
that's
something else.
Yeah. If I may bring up something a little bit, quite a bit different, I'd be curious to ask, how many here have seen Tar?
No,
I have not. No,
what is Tar?
Tar is relating to. Darn, I'm trying to think of the character's first name, and I want to say it's Elizabeth, but I'm not certain. But Tar is a young woman who fictionally came up with the Cleveland Orchestras, resultingly bounced around the heavyweight orchestras of the world, and is getting ready to conduct an epic recording of the Mahler Fifth Symphony with no less an organization than the Berlin Philharmonic. I'll get it right eventually. Except that she is to conducting as a woman what apparently James Levine and Charles Dutoit were, in that she is a player, she is an egotist of the first order, and she's headed for one hell of a fall. And it's an amazing character study. It's a long movie. I believe it's well over 2.5 hours long, but I'll tell you, it gives you a lot to chew on. I can tell you that right now. And and on top of everything else, I wanted to comment on this, and I wish one of you guys had seen it so that you could sort of maybe recognize this. There's a scene, I believe, in her apartment where she's entertaining some guests, and music comes up in the background, and I immediately go, what? And the story behind that is this: back in 1967, I was becoming something of a stereo geek. I was in the very, very earliest days, and one of the things I got was a test record. And it has the usual test tones, the left and right channel, frequency sweeps, whole 9 yards, lions and tigers and bears. And then on the other side, they had samples of this new recording outfit, which a guy by the name of Enoch Light put together. And one of the recordings was that of a premier trombonist. I don't know if you've ever heard the name Irby Green, but he plays a brilliant trombone, and he likes the sound so well that one day in around 1966 or 67, he invited 20 of his friends to come together, plus some sidemen on vibes, drums, guitar, and so on. And they created a 21 trombone ensemble. And the guy's sort of describing this and saying, this is the only recording ever produced that has 21 trombones involved in it. And he drops out, and you hear this curtain of just incredibly rich sound And it's the sound of Irby and his 20 friends playing Here's That Rainy Day. It is just, to use the C.S. Lewis phrase from the Magician's Daughter, it's as rich as plum cake. And if you're interested at all, I am going to send a copy of this. Come on, you can copy SOB. Let's see if we can make this work. There we go. And it's in the chat right now for anyone who's interested. I have loved that since I was a kid. And then to be in the middle of this movie and to hear that, I'm sort of going, shit, after all these years, somebody still appreciates Irby Green and what he did with those guys. Because I mean, that had to be a deliberate choice as far as I know.
It is. It's always cool when you see something like in a movie that
is that personal.
Yeah, that's personal and it's relatively obscure. You know, it's not something that like everybody is aware of, and you're like, oh, so you know, the people who made this movie are my people. You know, that's always really cool.
It's not quite that, but it's just the idea. Obviously, somebody who was in the dealing with the music department, dealing with background music, somebody there was an old fan of Irby and that classic recording. Because I mean, it's interesting too, because in the 21st century, there are a bunch of Dutch guys who were apparently huge fans of Irby, and they did their, apparently they got the original charts, and they have recreated those, at least a couple of those performances. A couple of them are really, really good.
Oh, we're audible now. Great.
Hot dang! Hey,
there we go. Oh, I forgot to check that shit.
Hear them.
We have audio. Carl's beats to the rescue.
Yes. Believe it or not, like many Twitch streamers, it's almost like a rite of passage to be a professional Twitch streamer. Words are hard. Hey, are you muted? Because so many people just accidentally mute their microphone or unmute their microphone when they come back for a break. I've done that before. Stream a whole hour where I was entirely muted.
If you can't beat them, beats them.
Arg. I wish I could throw my hat at you.
You've got a distance to go with that, geek.
Go sit in the corner, Joe.
So this is I don't know how to segue to this. So Steve, you're a Star Trek guy, right?
Yes.
You know a thing or two about Star Trek?
A little bit. Every so often I indulge in some Star Trek. Yeah.
I got thinking about Barclay again and his first episode, Hollow Pursuits. And I really am fascinated by just how good the acting is in that episode. Its portrayal of social anxiety disorder. And I just paid attention to the way his actors spoke throughout the episode. Because, of course, he stutters a lot. But he starts to talk more naturally around Geordi. And then towards the end, as the ship's about to destroy itself, suddenly he speaks with barely any stutter at all. Because somehow that situation is less stressful than just normal everyday interactions with people. It's like that's distracting him from his the threat of imminent death is distracting him from his own crippling social anxiety disorder. And that whole scene, it's riveting to me because there's a lot of techno babble in Star Trek. Put the thingy in the boomity and bounce off the deflector dish and whatever.
Boomity.
Yet somehow that
bouncing popcorn particle beam.
Yet somehow that scene is perfectly understandable to me because we're essentially watching. I mean, I have a guy who works in IT, and this is essentially what he does at his job every day. It's just through a simple process of elimination, they narrow down, what the problem could be, and then they go fix it. And it's just a couple of minutes of people being reasonably intelligent, and somehow that's like when Star Trek is the most interesting to me.
Nick, I spent 30 years doing exactly that. I mean, the handle is troubleshooter. I mean, what can I tell you?
Yeah. Well, and that's, you can always tell when the writing in Star Trek has handled the technobabble properly, because it does, like you said, like it doesn't matter that you can't understand exactly what they're saying because they're just talking about imaginary stuff, you know.
But you know what they're doing.
But you can tell generally what they're trying to accomplish. Yeah, and it's like, okay, and it's not just, you know, characters pushing buttons at an imaginary keyboard and then they go, oh, that fixed it. You know, like you can tell they're actually trying to figure something out and do something. And it's like,
no, we can hear you, Julian. Go ahead.
What? I found this very frustrating. I just read the second part of N.K. Jemison's. She wrote the City We Became and then The World That We Made. And they're both fun, but the denouement of the new one, the world we made, basically involves like kind of a quantum physics Deus Ex Machina.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of these things where like if the solution were like the rules of magic that we've established, and that's how everything is solved, you'd sort of be like, okay, well, if you set it up, that's fine. But they haven't really set it up. So it's like a quantum physics solution. But if you know, it's one of these, like, if you know a little about quantum physics, it's a solution that doesn't make sense. Because it's like they're combining, well, there are multiverses that are branching, but also like the problem is that someone else, this other elder alien species is like collapsing the wave function. It's like, well, no. These are alternative explanations. It's not, but like it's either you have branching multiverses or observation collapses the wave function. And normally, right, like this is a series about like people becoming avatars of cities and it's magic. So like whatever, normally I wouldn't care kind of how like scientifically respectable it is. But they haven't setting this up. It's just like, oh, the science nerd among the queen's avatar in the group, like it's like you know, it like knows physics and it's like, oh, I've got it. It's this problem of observation, and it's like, okay, but no. If you haven't set this up and you're just having the solution be a science thing that you have not set up in the rules of your universe, then the science thing has to make sense. And it doesn't make sense. There's like a 3-page, oh, is that it? And then the aliens are like, oh, you're right, okay, we're gonna stop trying to kill your universe. No. You didn't narratively set this up. And if it was like, but it's a real physics solution, then I would sort of like, oh, that's clever, I'll accept that. But it also doesn't make sense. It's like, you know, you got to pick one. You can either have made up rules, like we made up rules for magic, and that's the Deus Ex Machina, and that solves it. Or you can have hey, real physics solved it, and you can be like, oh, that's really clever. They used real physics. But if the real physics don't make any sense, it's like, well, then you just pulled some shit out of your ass.
That reminds me, I'm trying to think what movie it was. I think it was The Prestige, but I might be getting it mixed up. But it's the movie about you've got the magicians, and then it ends with like some Nikola Tesla.
Yes, that's
with the teleportation routine.
That like bugged the hell out of me.
That's Batman versus
I love
Wolverine.
sci-fi stuff. Obviously, that's you know, part of why I'm here. But like most of that movie goes on, it's just like it seems like a feud between magicians doing like normal magician stuff.
Wolverine and Batman,
you got like this magical sci-fi machine that's like creating duplicates of somebody. I'm like, where the fuck did this come? I mean, I know
wait a minute.
Sprinkled in some Tesla leading up to that, but it still was just like, really out there, out of nowhere.
It's David Bowie.
It's Nikola Tesla.
Pass on bullshit magic and like David Bowie did some bullshit magic. Well, yeah, of course he did.
Well, it's worse than bullshit magic. It's bullshit physics.
Yeah.
I mean, the chance of anything like that working is right up there, you know, with the Second Coming showing up. And I mean, it was a great movie. I was very into it.
Yeah, I like The Prestige. Yeah,
but I mean, the physics don't even come within a light year of working.
As David Bowie's Nikola Tesla says in the movie, exact science is not an exact science.
Isaiah, you had your hand up.
Isaiah,
what's do you have?
Oh, I don't know if any of you guys are on Instagram and you follow a lot of like Star Trek stuff, but here's something from an Instagram guy called Warp Dimples or something. And so,
Dimples?
I don't know. Well, I'm trying to show you on my phone because I'm having issue pulling it up on a computer. This is like a fan fiction of X-Files meets Star Trek Voyager.
Oh, swell.
Hey, that's a great way to improve Voyager real quick.
Yeah, this is Mulder as Janeway and Chakotay, and then here's two.
We call that a mashup.
Yeah.
And then here's actual Janeway and.
Oh, that's great.
That's good.
Yeah, and they are. I think they're there's some like Ferengi. They're on Earth.
They have to deal with the cigarette smoking Q.
Oh, come on. Yes.
But he would not be silent. He would not say
No.
Being silent. No, the Q would not be silent. He cannot be silent. You cannot.
Well, no, it would be a different Q. It would be a
Yeah,
ever
the
try to
cigarette
shut
smoking
down
man
the
will
lamp
talk,
once
yeah.
he gets going?
Kind of bouncing off what Julian was saying. This is I don't know what it's called. I've only heard about it in passing, but there's a tabletop RPG out there that takes place exactly like 1 million years in the future, and in that time, humanity has become a Star Trek, like Galactic Federation level civilization, and then regressed back to being cavemen like 7 times, just up and down over this million years. And by the time like the story picks up, we're currently in a pre-industrial age. It's medieval again. And it's kind of a fantasy setting, but all the monsters are just leftover technology from all those times civilization collapsed. Like slime monsters, that's just nanomachines. It's just gray goo that somehow hasn't eaten everything yet. But the people of the time have no idea they have no way to know what it is, so they just think it's a slime monster. And everything is like grossly misinterpreted as some fantasy thing, even though it's all science stuff.
Has anyone else read the Pern books?
No, I haven't read the Turn books.
Pern books.
Really?
Pern.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do like
essentially, it's a series of books starting with the Dragon Riders of Pern that is legit. Like I think it's like 23 books, and it isn't until like book 16 or something where it's revealed that the like medieval fantasy world that they seem to be in is actually a sci-fi world.
But that was a really like popular trope in the like 80s writing. But it makes me think of, for those who have watched Futurama, like in the very first episode, they have that like visual gag where he's in the tube 4,000 years and you see time going by outside really fast, and you just see like civilization get wiped out and like come back again, they get wiped out again and come back again.
It's a cycle.
It's a circle of life.
I've always wanted to do a series where like magic works by like invoking the forces of CD and Akai Gugal to like make shit happen via nanomachines.
You know, I just remembered out of nowhere. So my art style is kind of a mix between like different ones. It's not quite anime or manga or whatever, though some people think that at a glance. I try to make it more like grungy and kind of like elastic, like Western comics tend to be. Anyway, I remember my dad, he knew this guy who was old, but he used to be a cartoonist way back when, and he saw some of my work and he said, "Oh, so you draw like those," insert slur here. And
oh boy!
Like, yeah, kind of.
That's a conversation do you want to have with your father, as it were? Think like
no, not with my father. This cartoonist friend of his, this old man who just happened to be stopping by, and Dad's like, "Hey, look at my son Nick's art," and the guy he just whatever.
Yeah, it's just like said, you draw like those. Wow, it's like I try to. Okay, I know I'm like soundbite. I won't repeat them as a word.
It's like, okay, I get that's what you called them in World War II, but we don't call them that anymore.
that was a long time ago.
You know, back when they were still making comics, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, that's I mean, remember those 1920s and 1930s cartoons were incredibly racist with the blackface and stuff like that.
You know, I've been on a binge the last couple of weeks of listening to episodes of the Adventures of Superman radio show.
Oh yeah.
And it's so much fun and it's so great. And one of the things I really like about it is that it is like unabashedly like progressive and anti-racist and anti-discrimination. Like, and this is like the 40s. So it's really, you know, it's
impressive.
Yeah. And so it's really cool, but you still get those little artifacts of, but it was still the 40s. You know what I mean? Like
it's so anti-racist.
I am friends with the N-words. It's like
it's like the one is because the episode, most of the episodes,
credit to their race.
Yeah, exactly. That stuff like that. And like they'll still use like derogatory terms to refer to Japanese people because it is post World War II, and it's not like, you know, as it's not as bad as it could be, I guess, in that way. And it's like, but it's weird. It's like you're listening to an episode where like Superman is fighting a hate group, and Superman is like saying, you know, you're like, it doesn't matter what country someone's born in or what religion they are or what color their skin is, they're still an American and they have the same rights as you. And you're like, yeah, you tell yeah, it's like, yeah, in the same episode as Superman standing up for tolerance and equality, you hear like, you know, people, you know, refer to Japanese people with the J word or whatever, like, and one of the good guys, not one of the bad guys, one of the good guys will say that. And I'm just like, oh man, you're this close.
Like I always said, Lyndon B. Johnson did like write in the Civil Rights Act as a word, but he was also a big racist too.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say, you know, people ask sometimes like, why do enemy characters look so white, or like why are they such big eyes or whatever? And well, this may be like oversimplifying it a bit. But I think a reason a lot of the earlier magazines and stuff looked like that was part of Japanese people trying to rehabilitate their image to Western society. Yeah. Because think of how we drew them back then, with the you know the eyes and the teeth that would curl like they're an oni or something, and we made them look demonic. So it's like in trying to they tried to appeal to us more by looking more Eurocentric.
In fact, like
but is that true? Because was the audience for those things like? Was the audience for that era of anime like Western?
Well, the thing is, like for Astro Boy, it was dubbed in English and it was on syndicated television in America, and people thought it was Disney because the only thing that they knew that it was inspired by it, and the only thing they knew that does animation is Disney. So everything's animation,
except it looked nothing like Disney animation ever had to that point. I mean, it was the style was utterly different.
Well, there's only a certain level of sophistication in the audience. I mean,
lived in animation too, with like Astro Boy, like Kim White Line, and like Princess Knight, and as well as like Speed Racer too. But Speed Racer was like not so.
The point is that cutesy, almost like childlike image was part of them trying to, I don't know, project a friendlier image to the West.
Westernize themselves almost as well.
You know, one thing that I'm glad I did not do with Planet Ripple, because I seriously considered this at some point. So it takes place 30,000 years from now. The humans are a little different because, you know, that's enough time to evolve a little bit. So a lot of them don't have pinky toes. They don't have an appendix typically, or wisdom teeth. Their sleep cycle is different. Their lifespans are different. They're a little shorter, you know, so they've evolved. And one thing I considered was, well, if they're always trapped in the dimly lit bowels of a submarine, then maybe their eyes should be a bit more luminous or something. Exactly. So I considered drawing them with like the bigger eyes, and then eventually I would have a flashback to our time, or more like the 18 or 1700s, when you still had like wooden ships. And you see some sailors who are drawn all crusty and really detailed with little beady eyes. And people can say, oh, it's just an art style change. It's just being artistic to convey what a different era it is. And then I would have shown a merfolk, you know, species around back then and in Minos time, and they are drawn exactly the same way they would be in Minos era, not changing at all, which would then reveal that, oh, so humans just evolved to look more like cartoon characters. I'm glad I didn't do that. But it was something I considered at one point.
I mean, I guess it's tough. It's one of those things where like you have to sort of strike a balance in order to make sure that you don't lose the audience. Yeah, you know, because
explaining every little thing that doesn't need to be explained.
Yeah, because like, you know, sometimes in like when I talk to people about like Star Trek or something, they'll say like, well, you know, if it was real, then, you know, humans would look this way, and, you know, they wouldn't talk the way they talk in, you know, 20th century America or 21st century American. It's not realistic, and it's like there's a certain level of detail or realism, or like projected realism,
Right.
where that you just have to just say, I'm not going to worry about that. You know,
you can say that the humans. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I assume Picard is just speaking French always.
The humans,
yes.
The humans in my series, you could even say that they shouldn't be nearly as diverse as modern humans are. That they should have all become roughly the same shade of brown or something. But
right, even Joe.
I still want to draw different kinds of people.
Well, because you're making something for
today's audience,
and and it's just like when with Star Trek, people say like, well, because I made a video about disability representation in Star Trek, and one of the sort of arguments that people have made to kind of defend the relative lack of representation of visibly disabled people in Star Trek over the years is to say like, well, it's the future, and technology has advanced and medicine has advanced, and there probably just aren't that many people with visible physical disabilities anymore because technology has advanced so that those issues are corrected or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's fine, but you're making a show for today's audience where people with disabilities exist, and it's nice to have that representation.
I still love that we just call it the beep chair.
The beep chair, right? That's Jason. That's Jason who named it the beep chair. But and I just took it and said, I'm gonna run with this, buddy. I'm calling it the beep chair every single time I refer to it.
Steve,
especially with Star Trek, like this is that's a franchise that has, I think, more than any other franchise is known for using its kind of metaphors and stuff, and it's not so much about what would be realistic to the setting as it is more about what message are we trying to convey, not so subtly with our half black, half white people, whatever. But then they go, oh, we don't have disabled people because they wouldn't be around in the future. It's like that's kind of a
that's a cheat. Yeah, it's because it's never been a docudrama. I mean, if you haven't noticed, it's like it's the aliens are clearly human beings with shit glued to their faces.
Yes,
like it's not realistic.
While I don't think you should go out of your way to over-explain every little thing, I do think sometimes people's explanations can be funny. Like working out all the details of Darth Vader's suit. Apparently, like half the buttons on that stomach panel do nothing. They're just there to light up and look weird. And like occasionally, like the rasping
this is my radio
sound. That's not Vader breathing.
No, here's the question though. Are those actually buttons or are they indicators? Because they may not have functionality other than to indicate a certain condition.
Well, I should say they don't do anything useful. They're there just to bug him, basically. Like the respirator sound, that's not him breathing, because you can hear him speak and at the same time. That's the suit, breathing for him. And it didn't need to be that loud. Apparently, Palpatine just told them to design it that way just to irritate him. He has trouble sleeping because of that noise. Like he'll be trying to fall asleep and the suit just keeps doing that. Or like, oh man, now and then it just beeps. There's no regularity to it. It's completely random. He'll be in the middle of making a speech or having an important dialogue with somebody and just like just to startle him.
I love the idea of Palpatine saying, "Make sure he doesn't have any peace. Make sure he's never comfortable 1 second of his life."
It's like he's so ashamed and embarrassed by Vader screwing up that one time on that lava planet that he told them to design the suit poorly just to constantly torture him as punishment.
God, I hate you.
As much as I like that explanation, it's always been my headcanon that these are modifications that Anakin Skywalker made, because Anakin Skywalker, even when he's just standing there breathing normally, has to be the most important, paid attention person in any room ever.
Also, he's Donald Trump now, huh?
Look at all my blinky lights.
You remember me of one of the TNG episodes that was so progressive for its time, sort of aged poorly, is that one where like Riker falls in love with
non-binary.
The genderless.
Yes, the genderless person.
He's
Yeah.
like, he's like, what should I call you? It, and it's like, it's like whatever. 200 years in the future, and you don't know how to deal with like a non-binary. You don't know how to deal with pronouns, really?
Yeah. Well, it's like one of those.
It's 200 years in the future, but it's also the 1990s at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It just sort of shows how unfamiliar, even to writers in Star Trek, who I assume, were probably maybe slightly more progressive than the general population.
Average,
I mean,
or the producer.
But
yeah. Well, also remember the thing is like that genderless character was played by a woman actor as well, but like Jonathan Frakes was championed for having that character be played by a male actor too as well. But Rick Berman couldn't have that as well. You can't have two men kissing. What about the mummies? Someone complained and writing letters and stuff like that.
And I mean, like in Berman's defense, he was right in that would have probably been a really big, that would have been a huge deal at the time. That doesn't mean they shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Frakes.
There's no precedent for Star Trek having a controversial kiss.
But yeah, I do. I mean, I admire Jonathan Frakes for at least for making that suggestion and saying, look, if we're going to do this, let's do this. Let's not stop halfway. If the message of the episode is you should be allowed to love who you love and it doesn't matter what gender you are, then let's go for it. And they pulled back, unfortunately, but
just want to mention Jonah Roberts has messaged me again. Really wish that she didn't take the last $20. I have cash on hand in my wallet, that's fine, but so I'm just going to copy and paste her links into the live chat again, and also those links are in charity links page as well. I'll say that again at the end of the show.
It's the holidays. It's the season of giving. We just had Colonial Gluttony Day.
And Capitalist Friday.
We're Capitalist Friday, and as opposed to every other day.
Capitalist Monday's coming up tomorrow.
Capitalist Monday is tomorrow. Yes.
Yeah. Cyber Capitalist Monday.
Cyber Capitalist Monday. Absolutely.
Just change it up, be like Consumption Monday, maybe.
Consumption Monday.
News bulletin. Consumption Monday is Consumption Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday these days.
This is special Consumption Monday. This is special Consumption Monday with the sales. Just like Friday.
It's special consumption.
There's specials on cyber deals. See,
and I love that. I love, and then after that, there's Giving Tuesday. So after you've already spent all your money on Friday and Monday, then it's Giving Tuesday. So if you have anything left, then you can give to charity, but not until you've bought the presents.
Well, you don't have anything left? Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I wish, if only it was Giving Wednesday of the previous week, then maybe I'd be okay, but.
I'm going to send a mini essay. You know how I write, and when I go in 4,000 characters already, to my family, please don't get me anything because I'm not going to get you anything as well.
Yeah. I've never I always say whenever anybody who doesn't know me all that well, but maybe knows me well enough, to be thinking about getting me a present, whenever I always say, no, seriously, don't get me anything. And I'm always surprised when I get resistance to that, because I think some people assume that you're just saying that, to be modest or to be polite or, or because you would feel, I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything. Seriously, don't get me anything. I don't want anything. I don't need anything. You don't need to get me a present, if you're the kind of
donate to Doctors Without Borders in my name.
Yeah, exactly. if you feel like you need to spend money on me, then do something like that. Yeah, donate to Doctors Without Borders. Find a charity that you think I would approve of.
But you're missing something here.
What?
You're missing the fact that the gift is not about you; it's about them.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It's not about what you do or don't want. They feel the need.
I want to give you something. It's about me.
Yeah. Well, then I would say, then just give me some money. Yes. Just give me some money.
Yeah, whatever form it takes, they want to do the gift giving thing.
Exactly.
I think the form is not super important, but like the reception is what's important there. They want to feel heard, and that is that variety of feeling heard is receiving whatever they're giving.
I just found something funny. I'm sorry. I gotta read this. Okay, just listen to this. Okay. This is on the Wikipedia article. The monitoring panel beeped frequently and for no reason. The lights seemingly to serve only as a steady reminder of his vulnerability. His electrical systems were woefully delicate, and he was forced to protect his vital chest panel when dueling. The system was so vulnerable that, I can't read the name, was once able to deactivate Vader's entire suit by pressing one button on his chest pectoral plate.
Why is that button there?
It's just Palpatine fucking with him.
That's hilarious.
Why do I have an off button? Gift giving thing. It's kind of a weird. So my dad was a piece of work when he was alive, but he on the gift being more about him was such a thing because he would ask me what I would want, and either I would not want anything or I would want something practical, and then he would get like super angry at me for like.
What do you want?
Something not flashy, and then. Because we'd have Christmas with the whole extended family, and he wanted to show off what a big gift he was giving to his son. So he didn't want to give me, something practical. He wanted to give me like a big screen TV or some shit.
He wanted to give you what he wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
Therapy for the toxic masculinity.
To be fair, that's exactly what my mother did. She asked my dad, "What do you want? What do you want?" It's like, "I want a DVD player. I want a DVD player. I just want a DVD player. Everyone in family needs a DVD player at the time, so I want a DVD player." Well, this PS2 plays DVDs too. I know exactly why you're getting that. If that's the one gift you're going to get me, sure. Thank you. You gave me a PS2. Oh, Henry, I have this game, Final Fantasy X, that I can play on it. Do you mind?
It's like
sure.
It's like when Homer got Marge the bowling ball in The Simpsons.
Yes, right. Yeah.
But I use it all the time. The bowling ball named Homer is like my go-to shorthand for like a gift that's really a gift for like
what?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, you've never
it's so
done
perfect.
that. Well, no, the thing about the giver isn't inherently bad. It can
right.
It's bad when the giver doesn't realize that the gift's about them.
Yeah.
But it's not objectively bad.
Isaiah's patiently waiting.
Yes. Yes.
Well, speaking of Capitalist Friday, I actually decided to support some small businesses here in town.
Oh yeah, that's one thing you can do. Is absolutely
Hobbytown USA. So for Christmas, I already bought my first.
Ooh.
Fancy.
Is that a Harrier? That is a Harrier.
Sea Harrier first. Yeah, Navy Sea Harrier first. Nice. Oh, Isaiah. Okay. The people here in the Zoom call as well. Have you seen the X-wing fighter, the model that Isaiah put together? Didn't Isaiah? Do you have that?
Let me. This is made.
There you go.
Hold on.
Yes, Isaiah, keep talking so that's still on camera.
Yeah, so I made this back in 2016. This was for the Rogue One movie that came out.
Excellent.
Cool.
And so this is made out of paper.
What?
Yes.
Well, holy shit, that is cool.
This is made out of paper. This is like drinking straws.
That is crazy.
That is crazy. That is awesome.
I wanted you to say origami so bad. Drinking straws is still very impressive.
This is made out of plastic from like those little kits you get, those little boxes you get the action figures in. I just
nice.
That is impressive as hell, Isaiah. That is brilliant.
Thank you. You got like toilet paper rolls here for the engine. So
wow,
that's so good.
One of the things I'm so happy to know about Star Wars and how those movies were made was how, the props were, the smaller ship models were just made of pieces of normal like planes and cars and other model kits like that. So when they realized they had to make life-sized versions, like, where are we going to get the parts? It's like, oh, let's just cannibalize the real vehicles that those toys were based on. So they went to scrap yards and just grabbed anything that wasn't nailed down.
Yeah. The thing that impresses me when I think back on the original Star Wars is, keep in mind, 1977, they made that son of a bitch on $9.5 million.
Yes.
And they just ran away with the world. To me, that blows me away. I mean, and you take a look at the budgets that are going into this stuff now with CGI up the yin yang, and you're up to 9. You're up to 9 figures.
I have
regularly.
Yeah. You just reminded me of a story of poor Ian McKellen. So he loved being in the Lord of the Rings movies because those were mostly sets and practical effects and people in costumes that he could actually interact with. And then they made the Hobbit movies, and he spent like 3 days in a row just in front of a green screen talking to a tennis ball on a stick. And he had an emotional breakdown. He was crying on the set. He's like, this isn't why I became an actor. This poor sweet old man, he just felt so lonely and confused.
Poor Ian McKellen. Oh, I feel so bad for Ian McKellen.
Poor Ian McKellen with his Scrooge McDuck vault of money. For all the Lord of the Rings and X-Men movies he made.
I can sympathize with him having a breakdown just from like not having human contact for like the 3 days straight on the set.
Well, also consider the arc of his career and how long he has spent interacting with human beings, not just for 10 or 20 years, but 30, 40, 50 years he's doing this, and all of a sudden he's got to relate to an inanimate object and act
in a green void.
That is a big ask.
And and he came up and spent the first portion of his career in theater, which is the most human of all the performing arts. And it's
he just wants to talk to another human being, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a lot of imagination. Like there's a lot of imagination involved in theater. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you have to conjure place and time, and but you're at least talking to another person. You're
and you have the audience there too as well.
And you could argue that you're extending that imagination even further in trying to take that stupid tennis ball and turn it into something that you can actually actively relate to.
I think it says something that most of the actors, like in these movies, like the Marvel movie actors, they all say the same thing, that they have no idea what the movie's even going to look like when they're acting out those scenes, and then they see themselves in the final product and like,
if I had known that's what it was going to look like, I would have reacted a little differently.
I would have acted better.
I'm inviting you to their program. It's just Ian McKellen is maybe not actually a great film actor. I think he's a fantastic theatrical actor. But if you see him on screen in film, like really great film actors are doing very small stuff that conveys a lot of emotion. Like the eyes narrow, the mouth turns a little bit. Ian McKellen is a great theatrical actor, and you don't need to do any of that shit in theater because no one's going to see that in theater. And he doesn't really do that. He came up in theater. He's a great theater actor. I mean, he's maybe not a great film actor because he's fundamentally not trained for the kind of the granularity of film. And he's such a good theater actor that he's great anyway. Like you enjoy his thing anyway, but he's not doing the stuff that really great film actors do.
I think part of it is, first of all, he has a voice and he has great presence, and also
he's endearing.
He's endearing, and most of his big, like the work that he's done on film that have sort of brought him his movie stardom are projects that don't necessarily call for subtlety anyway. I mean, it's not like the Lord of the Rings movies.
You'll never keep me in this plastic prison, Charles.
Yeah, exactly. Magneto's not the most subtle character. You know what I mean? Like,
but that's the fun. We like theatrical characers.
And I was say,
exactly.
I would disagree on some of that.
Like Michael Fassbender is a more subtle Magneto than
yes, he is. You're right. Fassbender is not swinging for the fences as often as
you know what, though,
was, yeah.
This reminds me of one other kind of similar example of a voice actor where like, you got to show them what their character is going to look like at least. Yeah, there's this one who was in Transformers show Beast Wars. His name is Scott McNeil. He voiced so many characters on that show. There was an entire episode where it was basically just him talking to himself. Yes, because all of his characters were together. Anyway, there was one point where a character of his died, and then was later brought back, but in a much more monstrous Frankenstein-like form. And he basically just gave him the same voice, but slightly more gruff. But then he eventually saw the toy. He's like, "Wait, that's what my character looks like now? Oh, if I knew that, I would have made him sound much scarier."
Right.
Yeah.
What do you call it? As far as McKellen goes, though, there are moments where you see it. What do you call it? I just recently saw Fellowship of the Rings, and the moment where Frodo stands up and even before he says, "I'll take the ring," there's just this
crestfallen,
really slow, like really like, "Oh no, I caused this." That poor little man is gonna suffer because of what I did. That's all conveyed in just a slight eye movement from McKellen.
That performance was like he realized he's sending off his own son to die in war. Essentially,
well, but I guess that's a moment that calls for it.
True.
You know what, though? That whole story. I guess what's most fascinating about it to me is most fantasy stories, they make you want to live in the fantasy. That's the whole point of it. There's this whole genre now called
dedicated to trees.
There's this whole genre now called isekai of just characters from our world being whisked away into a fantasy world. It's like, yay, I get to be the protagonist. But in Middle Earth's case and Lord of the Rings case, it's like the further back you go, the bigger and more crazy and fantastical everything gets. And as the story goes on, it's all winding down, and you realize that the tree people are leaving, the elves are leaving. Every remotely magical thing about that world is going away. Pretty soon it's just going to be indistinguishable from our world.
Yes.
So it's becoming so the point is it's transitioning into our world, but that's what you want. It's a rare case where you don't want to protect the fantasy. You want the fantasy to end because the bad guys are trying to make it an evil, monstrous fantasy. And that's just so fascinating to me.
I'll see you later.
Oh,
see you, Isaiah.
See you, Isaiah.
It's just fascinating to me because it's like the inverse of so many fantasy stories where you want to preserve the fantasy that's fading away here. You want it to go away so it can peacefully become the world we have now. It's just it's weirdly grown up, I guess.
So with like the final few minutes of the thing, I'm just gonna be posting the links into the chat. Any other final thoughts before we really close out the show?
Penguins are cute.
I wanted to fool around a little bit with The Handmaid's Tale, but we'd be going on for the next 15 minutes.
Yeah,
I have not seen the most recent season. I think I dropped out after. I think I watched the first couple episodes of season 4, and I was like, okay, I'm done. Like I think when June had the opportunity, when she got her daughter out, and then when she got one of the kids out, but she chose to stay behind. I think at the end of season 3, I was like, okay, I'm out. I'm just I can't watch this character anymore. It's like, and it felt like, okay, we need to keep the show going. You know what I mean? It didn't seem like this person who has been in this situation, for all these years, and she has a chance to get out and reunite with her husband and, go to Canada and be free. And, it's like, and she's not gonna do it because they have to keep making the show. That, I felt
now here's the thing. First of all, here's the thing as it comes to that. She is she's more or less obsessed with getting Hannah back. And that's at least part of it. But then the other thing is, she wants some very serious payback with the Waterfords, with Aunt Lydia, the whole 9 yards. But there's one other point I wanted to make in the midst of all that, and this is regards the show as an overall arc. I've just finished season 4, and my wife and I are getting ready to tear into season 5. Okay. And the one remarkable thing, that I see, and you might catch this considering the crowd that we're in, where are the atheists? Where are those who look these guys square in the eye and say, why are you relying on something that doesn't show itself? Why do you, pretend? Why do you continue
I assumed
to
killed
pretend?
off.
Yeah.
Why do you
assumed killed off. I just thought they were eliminated. I figured.
Well, that might muddy the water.
I'll tell you what, Canada's got a, but even in Canada, everybody's godding all over the place.
Everybody's godding all over the place.
Well, they are. Yeah. There's not even the slightest question that that a God may or may not exist. And I find that, as an atheist and an atheist activist, I find that phenomenal.
They killed all the atheists.
Yeah.
Gilead certainly would have.
Part of it is,
but Canada, I don't think so.
I think part of it is probably
you never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
Part of
Canada
it is probably
colonialist project as well. So yeah.
Part of it is probably that there isn't a ton, unfortunately, there isn't a ton of atheist representation in media just overall. And also I wonder if, because the show is what it is, and because, it's telling the story that it's telling, if maybe bringing atheism into it if they thought maybe that would muddy the water.
Yeah.
Would it muddy here's my thing. Would it muddy the water, or would it introduce an alternative point of view that would tend to shake things up too much?
I think that's probably not the. Well, the thing is, maybe they thought of if they did introduce an atheism and an atheism counter group and stuff like that, they probably wouldn't have the story. That's their explanation, or they're not.
Well, you still have a story, because you still have a dominant group that wants to insist that their God's will needs to be acknowledged and executed and all that fine stuff. And certainly that's going to be the lead story in Gilead. I pity any atheist who's still in Gilead after this. But as far, once you get out of that environment, once you have a chance to breathe and think for yourself, alternative ideas are going to be a lot more available and a lot more likely to occur, and yet they haven't. And that is my problem with it.
Well, I'm not sure how much longer they plan on keeping the show going, but if they want to try to wring a few more seasons out of it, maybe they could they could do that. That might be an untapped story resource.
Steve, fasten your seatbelt. I saw an article not that long ago that talked about The Handmaid's Tale running, fasten your seatbelt, 10 seasons.
Oh, Jesus, I can't. Like I said, I bailed out after the end, pretty much at the end of season 3. I was like, this is they've hit the wall.
I read the book. I liked the book. And I finally watched the show.
Because the book only the book they cover the book in season 1. And then after that they're sort of adding on to it. And I like season 2. It's still mostly Handmaid.
I take the lesson of Game of Thrones, which is it became incredibly shitty once they got past the book.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, maybe I'll catch. And it was like, oh no, they already finished the book and they're doing more past it. I was like, well, I know how Game of Thrones went. I enjoyed the book a lot, but
it's honestly, it's
once they get past the book, it kind of turns shit.
I didn't want to, take us way past the hour or anything like that, but I did want to get that out, and it's something I'm probably going to treat in a blog sometime in the fairly near future.
Honestly, hearing that there's going to be 10 more seasons of Handmaid's Tale, that makes me want to watch the TV show less. That's like season 1.
The suggestion was 10 seasons total.
A total, so
it's 5
that's
more.
so long. Which is still,
that's a lot.
Let's keep in mind, MASH ran 11 seasons, and it was running out of steam after season 9 or 10. But
I haven't started
watching. Already longer than the Korean War.
Yes,
longer than the Korean War.
I'm 5 times longer than the Korean War.
I'm an anime fan because I like my shows to end. Anyway, but Steve, what do you have coming up? What do you have coming up later this week on your channel?
I like my live streams to end too. Yes, tomorrow I have a video going up that is a humorous monologue that I wrote and recorded about how it doesn't make any sense that they air commercials for prescription drugs when the people watching TV can't buy the drugs. They're like, go ask your doctor about it. Well, how is this my job?
Right. I can't, not my job. I can't afford it.
Yeah. Why are you trying to get me to sell your product to a doctor? Like, don't you have pharma reps that do that? Why am I involved in this at all? But anyway, so that's going up tomorrow. And then Wednesday is another Star Trek video about focusing on the Klingons from classic Trek. And also Wednesday is Trek Reluctantly with me and Dana, where we will be, it's an off week for Star Trek. We're watching the last episode of the BBC's North and South miniseries. So that's Wednesday night at 6 Eastern. And yeah, I think that's it.
Yep.
And that's also it for this show. Because so if anybody, if you've been watching this and this looks like fun, patreon.com/Steve Shives, or click the join button to become a member. One of the benefits of being a member or a patron is once a month we get together and we do this. And
we didn't fill up this time either.
We didn't fill up this. And also, programming note, because the final Sunday of December is, I think, New Year's Eve. No, the final Sunday is Christmas. The final Sunday of December is Christmas, and then the following week, which would be the first Sunday of January, would be New Year's Eve. So the next one of these, New Year's Day. The next one of these that we do will be on December the 18th. So it'll be 3 weeks instead of 4 weeks, because I'm not doing one on Christmas and I'm not doing one on New Year's Day.
Yes, that's fair.
Yeah. So I will see everybody in 3 weeks on December the 18th for the next one of these. And then we'll be back on schedule for the one after that will be the last Sunday in January, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so happy holidays, everybody. I'll see you on the 18th. I hope everybody had a good Colonial Gluttony Day. I love that. I love that so much.
My friend Nessaneko came up with that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And thanks for joining me, and thanks everybody here for being patrons and members and supporting my channel. And if anybody watching enjoys my YouTube work and wants to become a supporter, I would encourage you to do so if you can afford it, if it won't take food off your table. And that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.